Hey, my name is Phil Cruz. Welcome to Cruising the Field. Another episode. Today I have a special guest. My first time having a fellow podcaster, Mr. Nick Goblirsch. I got it right. We went over this a few times.
So close.
Hey, Nick, how
So
you doing,
close.
buddy?
Doesn't matter. How you doing? Phil,
Yeah,
you really never had another podcaster? I'm the first one
no, I think
on
you're
the show.
my first one.
Huh.
Yeah, yeah,
All
this is
right.
my first one. First one.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. So my first one. Yeah, and you're actually you're close to my 95 mark of 100 episodes coming up.
Oh, sweet. Oh, I remember 100. 100 was a good time. I remember 100 episodes.
We're close.
That's awesome. I remember when I first got my 100th episode. That was awesome. Very
Oh
cool.
yeah, I saw your thing on video with your 100 or no, was it your 2000 episode or something? Was that
No,
you?
I did 200.
200, yeah, 200.
The first podcast I did, the Dependent Independent podcast, was supposed to be a 200 episode podcast. And people would say to me, like, why, how come only 200 episodes? And I said, well, it's just enough that I didn't quit at 100, but at probably 200, I think I want to do something else. But I used to do like small episodes in between my main episodes. I actually didn't officially do 200 full episodes. I just kind of decided, I think I'm done in
Yeah.
2020, because that's when I started my business. I was taking most of the things I wanted to talk about and putting in my content to promote my business. And I just went straight to 200. But 100 was a big deal. Actually, 100 was a crazy deal because I did my 100th episode 5 years this month. And that was the first time. Oh, that actually, we can get into that. I'll actually, that's a good one. If you
Okay,
want, we could
cool. Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about
Okay.
that one.
So introduce yourself, Nick, and tell us who people you are.
All right. So my name is Nick Goblirsch. I am a corporate HR leader turned professional house painter. I was in an HR leadership positions throughout my 20-year career following college, and which I didn't study. I just kind of stumbled into it. And now I'm being an entrepreneur for the last 5 years. And now I work with individuals and organizations that are going through, on top of the house painting, going through change, any type of organizational or individual change, especially with career change, midlife, which can be really scary and crazy. And what I do is I coach them on mitigating a lot of the obstacles that get in the way, mostly created by ourselves, to keep us from really doing something that we enjoy doing, something we're passionate about. We're raised too much in an environment that we're told to find safe paths all the time. But being in HR for 20 years, I can tell you, with the amount of layoffs and company changes I've dealt with, even when times were good, I don't think there's anything safe. You always have to be able to adapt and overcome. And I now have the opportunity to work with people that go through that. So that's a lot of fun. That's really a lot of fun. And I can't paint houses forever. So
Yeah.
speaking and
Okay.
coaching is something I'm really looking forward to do till I can't talk anymore. I want to be able to do it. I don't want to retire at 65. I want to be able to talk and write books and
Oh,
do
yeah.
as much as I can to pay it forward with all the experience I have with change.
I remember reading your story. You got laid off, and so what happened after you got laid off? You realized that.
So no, so my 100th episode, I've been a podcaster just like Phil. I've been creating podcast content since 2000, the end of 2014. I published my first podcast. It went live on January 2015. It was called the Dependent Independent Podcast. I was in my late 30s, and I was struggling. There was a lot of things I was learning about myself and hadn't really even discovered about myself. But at the time, I had a really difficult time making friends. And I was working with a close friend of mine who had started his own business. He had left corporate. We had worked in the same, I was still working in a corporate job. He started his own business, and I helped him build all his online marketing promotional things with YouTube and Facebook. So I had video equipment, audio equipment. I've been messing around with that stuff since I was a kid. My dad exposed me to that stuff when we were really young. And he convinced me to, hey, you listen to podcasts. Why don't we do a podcast? And I did some research and bought Idiot's Guide to Podcasting, bought an inexpensive mic, plugged it into my computer, and uh, that's pretty much where it all started. And then it was really about bringing people on the show that I connected with through the show. I used the show as a platform to make friends, to build relationships. But it was great because I had all this experience as an interviewer in HR and human resources. And I was able to really pull a lot of information out of people, maybe information they would most likely not share on normal podcasts, which was a lot of fun. And I was, to fast forward, I was doing the podcasting, and I was speaking at podcast conferences, starting to really understand that maybe I was meant to do something a little bit different than what career path I had chosen, and was fairly successful in. I was in a high executive job, my last HR job. But when I got laid off, but it was all this whole amalgam of midlife crisis and deciding that's not what I want to do anymore. That when I got laid off, uh, ironically, it was approaching my 100th episode, and we had scheduled. I got a small space in a local bar here in their whiskey room downstairs. They built this whole space down in the basement, and I like doing live events. I like promoting things. I had fans of the show come, and I had them on the show. But ironically, which I made some mistakes in deciding that I didn't want to go back to my career, or at least jump back in my career. I had mentioned it to someone at the party, but I never really told my wife that I wasn't going to do that. So she found out from someone while we were there. And I remember having her on the show, like interviewing her on the microphone. And I realized that looking back, I could tell she was very angry with me, and she was hiding it, like, while we were talking.
Mm-hmm.
And when I looked back on that show and realized after she spoke to me afterwards that I never was going to post that show. So I think I lied and told my audience that the 100th episode was the live episode was scrapped. The audio was terrible. I think we ended up setting up a microphone, Phil, like underneath a giant speaker. It was awful. Like, it was really terrible. You had to scream in the microphones, but it was cool. I mean, it was a cool experience, but it was more of an experience of that. Some of the hard things about deciding to make a change that is going to impact your family, on why it's so important to really talk to your family about it versus just kind of plowing through it, which one of my latest Buckets of Change podcasts is I had my wife on the show over the holiday break, episode 8.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and she shared her. We've talked a lot about it. I mean, it's been 5 years. We've talked a lot about it. I've learned a lot about myself in that process, and
Yeah,
her
let's
the
ask you a
same.
question. Just want to ask you a question. Just to backtrack. You mentioned after you quit, you got laid off. Yeah, yeah. You were making friends. You had no friends back then. I was just kind of curious why you mentioned that.
No, I when well, making friends was about the podcast.
Yeah.
That's why I had the.
It was because you were working HR for so long that it was hard to make,
No, yeah, I came up. I talk about this when I work with people on change. Is about commitments. About when you have an agreement with yourself. Like, if you wake up every day and assume that the day is going to be crappy, most likely you'll behave in a way that, based on that assumption, that your day is going to be crappy. Uh, Out of protection of myself during the recession, when I kind of really started really getting a taste for where my strengths were in my career, I worked at a retail organization that went through an enormous amount of layoffs, excuse me, over 3 years' time. I mean, every 6 months I was firing probably 200 people. And I was very good at it. I mean, I was very good. Later in my career, I became that person that companies would hire when they went through organizational change, which some of the most difficult changes were laying off
people.
employees. I just made a commitment to myself that I didn't want to make friends at work, because I didn't want to be sitting across the desk of someone who I had to determine whether or not they would keep their job. But also, I never wanted to be in a situation where, once my strengths were managing performance and really helping managers manage their employees, I didn't want to have any friends at work and have one of them be part of those. I would lose my I thought credibility. I needed to maintain that. I kind of started fitting a mold. Like, this is the mold I need to fill. I didn't even make friends with the people I work with, like my teams, not till later in my career, like my last 2 jobs, did I really start opening up with my employees. I just was a different person, because I thought that's what get me ahead. That's what really would get me ahead. When I became a podcaster and I was honest, and I know you've struggled with my last name, but I even to a point would call myself Nick G on my podcast, Phil, because I was afraid that someone from work would hear me on my podcast and think differently about me, which then later in my career, people that I work with listen to my show. So then it just became this thing that, it's funny how we figure like the world needs to view us a specific way and we have absolute control over it. So if we wanted to look at the world to look at ourselves this way, then here's the act I need to put on in order to do it. Because I don't believe we can be all things to all people, but we can be an authentic one. One thing I like about you, Phil, is extremely authentic, man. You're you, dude. So I don't, you're always you. How you
Mostly.
communicate, how we've connected, stuff you've shared with me, the help you've given me, it's it's genuine. I just found myself on this path of trying to be something every time I was somewhere, and I didn't like myself for that. So I needed to absolutely make a change. Just unfortunately, that change was picking a new career, which I thought that would help, or at least just leaving this career behind. But again, making the big mistake because I didn't tell my wife that I was going to. I have become much better at.
Nick, why didn't you tell her? I'm just curious. Why didn't you tell her?
I don't know, man. I think I told her. I think my intent was not to keep things from her. My
Yeah.
intent was to. Um, I don't remember. Every time I went for a job, I just kind of went and did it. I went and interviewed and got the job and got the offer and signed the paperwork and started and provided. Just provided for my family. I didn't really think that my job really affected. I mean, later in my career, my executive career, I mean, I made a pretty good salary, which allowed us to afford a lot of things. And I think I was fearful because knowing that a change in career could affect that lifestyle. But we weren't married. At least I wasn't married to it. Um, she processed it as I didn't trust her. There was a part of me. I kind of fell into a trap where my friend of mine who started his business kind of went through the same thing with his wife. And I just was like, what do I do? And he provided me like, this is what you need to do. Um, Megan, I know we didn't talk a lot about this on our podcast, but I could see the fears she had. She projected on me. And I had to be very careful because anytime I talked about what I wanted to do, I would most likely get a negative or well, I don't know if that's a good idea type of response. And once I figure out what I want to do, I'm fairly determined and disciplined. The last thing you want to do is have someone in your ear telling you it can't be done. That's just not how I roll. Anytime we make changes in our lives, usually it's the people that are closest to us, especially in our careers, that are trying to tell us that maybe it's not a good idea. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I still to this day go to social events and people come up to you and be like, "So, how's business? Is it good?" Because everyone assumes that anytime someone is an entrepreneur, they fail. Like I don't, because it's not safe. It's not
Oh
considered
yeah.
safe. But it's great because I have this insight knowing that you can make a high six figure, close to almost $200,000 a year in a salary, and still lose your job. Like you could, there's no guarantee of anything. Uh, so I think with Meg, part of it was I didn't want to put myself in that situation. I mean, actually, all that kind of came after I made the decision. Uh, but I didn't understand it. I didn't really understand what my actions actually did or could do to someone in the family. Because me, I knew if you ask my mother-in-law, Phil, and I'll end this thought on this. She always said to me, I'm a hustler. Back in 2000, when I left college, I did door-to-door sales for 2 years. I was terrible at it. Didn't make any money. I didn't eat at all. Like I lived with a bunch of guys for this multi-level marketing company. We traveled the country and eventually had to quit and moved in with my in-laws at the time and had nothing. Like my first car got repossessed out of their driveway. I had nothing. That was 2000, October of 2000. And I hustled. I started at a movie theater. Then I started working in the casinos and HR, and then kind of just hustled and hustled and hustled. So my mother-in-law has always been this advocate, knowing that no matter what I try and do, I'm going to figure it out, which is awesome, which is really cool. It's just the ironic thing is she wasn't telling me that. She wasn't saying anything to me back then. Like she was just as concerned because I think as a family unit, I kind of was, really climbing the corporate ladder. And I think I was viewed as this guy that like, wow, it's amazing what this guy's done, not knowing anything about, not going to school for it and just kind of, flying up there. And it freaked everybody out. But now, they look at it and, it's tough with the speaking and coaching process, even though I did that more, ironically, I did that more as a professional in HR than I did as a painter. I have to be careful who I share that with because you still get that kind of, really? What is it? I just, it's a shame. It's a shame that we forget that it's the hard work that really makes people successful,
Yeah.
and adapting and changing and moving forward versus just things being handed to you, or I pick this path, so this path is going to be more successful than this path. I think that's a
We talked
farce.
about this before on the phone. So I got a question. Yeah, I was not a personal question, just I was a question for everybody. Fear of being credible to people.
I talked about this before.
Yeah.
When I when I was when I was going door to door, that was, I think the family all looked at me like I was a psycho. I can't believe my wife's like, we were dating during that time. Like she was in school and I was just trying to figure myself out. And there was a time in my career where as I started getting jobs, I wanted my in-laws who were parental figures to feel like I was legitimate and credible at what I did. Even as a young professional in HR, because I accelerated at the age I was at, my peers were always older than me. They were always older than me. And it was great because then when I hit my 40s, I was like, oh, thank God. Now everybody's my age. Like, I don't, because I felt like I had so much to prove all the time, like all the time. And sometimes I fall into that trap where I'm like, am I really doing this? Like, is I really doing this? But that's just a bit of imposter syndrome that comes in and out, every 3 or 4 months that I have to say, nope, I'm not going to listen to you.
So you're 40 now, right?
I'm 48.
Oh, you're 40. Oh, okay, you're 40. All right, 40. Oh,
Yeah,
good.
I feel good. Mike, someone told me I was going back and forth with someone from high school on Facebook, and she said, it's flattering. I never thought I'd ever like be flattered by it, but people always think I look younger than I actually am.
Yeah, because if you shave the beard, you look really young. There's a
Oh
picture of
my
you
God,
there.
if I did
Yeah,
this, yeah, if I
yeah.
shaved this on.
There's a picture of you the tour in the year Facebook. You got it all shaved off there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Megan, when I started shaving my head, she does not want that much skin, she always says to me. So as much as, so she likes it. I mean, if she said, uh, yeah, because when I kiss my wife, she's got to deal with this, and
Yeah.
it doesn't seem to bother her at all. It just
Huh?
seems to work. I mean, it just seems to be also I mean, I know you're bald and you have facial hair too.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
just shaved.
something that
Today's my shaving day, so I just shaved today this morning.
it's so funny how you decide you don't want hair on the top of your head, so then you grow it on the bottom of your head. I don't
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah. I
I
know.
don't get that.
I got tired of shaving every day in the military for like 20 years, every day.
Yeah, I guess you're
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
So now I just shave. I shave like once a week.
yeah, me too. I'll do it like if I'm like I almost gauge it like if I'm going to an event or if I'm doing a
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, I'll do it if I have to
I
go
mean,
to
I'm
bed.
wearing a hat now. Like
Yeah.
I didn't shave today, but like ironically, yeah, I'm, we were talking about HR, human resources, and and now that I'm coaching and speaking on change, I've been out of the space for a while, and I think I'm going to talk about this on my podcast tomorrow. That I'm going, which I thought I would never really do, go to these dinner meetings that a local professional HR chapter. I was a member for 15 years, and it was great. It was great networking, and you could get involved in committees and things. And I'm actually just going for research. Like I'm simply going with like a pad and a pen, and just going to talk to people about what's going on in the industry. Like just listen, and just so it can help me understand a little bit more about what needs I can fill. Like not going, no pun intended, I guess. Uh, needs I can fulfill and people I can serve based on that. And it's fun. It's exciting because now I get to go back to this environment with a completely different set of eyes. And then
You have an agent, right?
I do. I have a speaking agent. Yeah, it's we've been working together for a while. I am I'm excited because of what access I have. I mean, she's a lot more of a consultant than an agent because she provides me a lot of resources. Her name's Antonia Rose, and her company is Wellness Productions. She is really connected to a lot of things I never thought I'd be. I remember I connected with her about speaking, and I really thought it would just be a speaking. I get speaking gigs, but then there's this whole avenue of coaching, which is kind of my wheelhouse. That now I was able to build this framework I came up with, took all this experience about change and kind of put it into a follow step by step, follow this process framework that can help people who are going through change deal with whether they're going through significant career changes, or we can implement it at a corporation too, or an organization, which is fun. I get to practice as I work with clients. Does this work? Does that work? I enjoyed training when I was in HR. I love putting together training programs. I like being able to articulate something to someone that might be confusing. I know I had sent you. Did I send you that playlist of videos when I was podcasting?
I watched quite a bit of them.
Yeah. Make podcasting easier was this little. I did these Facebook Lives every Wednesday for like 7 or 8 weeks, and it was fun. It was cool. Just again, the irony of that was, Phil, is I felt so uncomfortable doing those videos because I'm of the mindset, and I'm sure you're this way. You're very unique, Phil. There's no one I know that does what you do, like talks the way you do about your experiences, and you're the best Phil, right? And I'm a big proponent. If you're going to do any type of artistic content, be the best you. Don't try to do what somebody else is doing, like, because you'll only be as good as they are on their worst day, right?
Hey Nick, you just told me my next subject. I'm going to ask you a question.
Oh,
You
sure.
want to talk about what we talked on the phone the other day? Remember, you called me or you told me.
Yeah.
So the question I'm going to ask you is, maybe we'll get that, is you have an agent and she presents you in a certain way, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Remember we talked about that? Yeah. So do you want to talk about that?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. That's fine. I thought that's where you were going with that.
yeah.
No, it was great. It was great. You're a big help especially on my last podcast. I even said that, like, after I talked to you, I talked to her, and I mean, she's an agent. She's optimistic. So even when I said I don't really feel right recording my show, I don't like the way I'm conveying myself. Obviously, she was optimistic and said, "No, you look great," and all this. And I basically explained to her. I said, "My best work comes when it comes from um, who I am. Like I can be the best me. But when I'm trying to fit the mold, even almost similar to what I was saying about my HR career, about, you're this executive, you have to, act a certain way, and it's a shame, but not until late in my career that I felt like I was being myself. I kind of figured it out that I could still be successful. Or when I was myself, I realized I didn't belong in that career anyway. Acting was easier to do that. But now moving forward, I always felt that since she was talking to potential producers and speaker bookers, that they would go to my content and see me on these videos. And I thought I had to be this, I mean, I'm wearing a t-shirt and a hat. When I'm on my podcast, I don't wear that, which I would feel more comfortable with. Instead, I'm like, find a collared shirt or put a sweater on.
For
And
the audience.
I only produced about, I think I have 2 in the can. I need to produce, but I kind of stopped at like 8 or 9 podcast episodes. I need to reinvent what that's going to look like whether it be videos before the show or a recap after the show. There's some AI tools I want to work with to see maybe I can come up with clips with that. But I had to tell her, I said, I don't like that. I don't like the fact that I'm trying so hard when I don't need to. I can work hard, but I don't need to try that hard.
What do you mean, like
So
trying so hard for what? To be what? Like
putting this image on, like if someone's going to pay me, $5,000 to talk on stage,
well, you mean
they're
like
going to,
you gotta like dress up or
yeah,
whatever?
I watch, I don't listen to other podcasts in the coaching space. I do. There are some that I check out, but I'm always of the mindset, like, if I'm in that space all the time, I don't need really, unless I'm doing some research, I don't need to be entertained with that. I listen to video game movie podcasts. That's the stuff that is interesting to me to listen to podcasts with.
I go to all the events.
Wait, say that again.
When I go, I do when I go to the events. I don't think I just walk out the door.
Well, can you do me a favor, Phil? Just say that one more time. You were a little bit
I s-
muffled when you said that.
yeah, I said when I go to events, I get invited to certain events, functions or
Yeah.
get-togethers or meetings. So if I don't become right, if I don't know anybody, like I'm a friendly guy, but if I don't feel that mode to like put myself out there and like purposely being friendly for no reason at all, like not gonna go anywhere with me, I just walk out the door. I just go home.
Oh, what I get that kind of,
Yeah,
you're like the energetic introvert. I'm the
yeah,
same
yeah.
way. What I
That's an
usually do is
interest. Yeah,
I find one or two people and
yeah,
I lock hips with them.
yeah.
And then I build a relationship from that event. Like I've made some strong friends just by I'm not a, you know, that's why I'm even bringing business cards for uh, my coaching side of my business and handing them out. But again, I'm not, walking up to somebody, hey, here you go. I guarantee maybe my goal is to hand out five, maybe five.
I got I
That's
got a
the,
quick I got a quick question, Fred. Now that you're 48, now you're in this situation, you're comfortable with yourself, how you
yeah.
are. Now, when you see guys, say in the field you used to work, HR and the business
Yeah.
field, now when you
Mhm.
see these guys the way they are back, like where they are now, like you say, I was like that back then, like you could say like, hey, don't have to be like that. Look at me.
Well, I've always, just because I chose to leave a career doesn't mean that career is bad. And I
No,
had
no,
to come to
no,
grips.
not just that. You see how like you say, I was like that back then, like back in 20 years ago, or like HR, on the go, now you look at yourself now more relaxed, you're more comfortable.
Well, no,
You
I
know what I
can
mean?
say, not that I wasn't a relaxed person. It's just I spent 60, 70 hours being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I guess
So you see a different mentality, right?
no,
With
but maybe, maybe it was, I've learned that a lot of it, I don't think it had to be, it wasn't really my situation. I think it was more me. It's, I mean, for instance, I have a client I was talking to today, and he is, I mentioned him on the podcast, my podcast before. Spent a long time. He's in his probably early. I think he's in his early 30s. He small kids, kind of where I was at the same time. Accelerated in his career, did extremely well. A lot of leadership qualities, but decided at the company he was working at, he wanted to make more money, more flexibility, and he went and got a job as a salesperson at a company. And it wasn't what he expected, not at all. And after 6 weeks, decided that he needed to change. Now he and I had talked, and he kind of knew what I was doing, so I've been kind of working with him a little bit. And we had a talk today about how he was feeling. And if you went back and talked to Nick back in 2018 in October, November, when I was deep into my depression because I was going through this like crazy crisis of who am I and what am I doing and can I do this? He sounds like me. All the problems he's having is sounds like me. And I had to give him tough love and basically say that, although your problems, you think they're problems, they're all yours. You've created them all, and you're the only one who can fix them. Like if you do not, I even said this, and I'm gonna put this on a t-shirt. If you change nothing in a difficult situation or bad situation, it's you will never have to worry about what's going to happen because you know exactly how you're going to feel. You know exactly what's going to happen. It's awesome actually. Like you don't have to worry about anything. It's so predictable. But the moment you decide to do something different or find a different path, that's when things get scary because you can't see what's going to happen. And when you get more in tune with accepting that and knowing that you don't know what your next step's going to bring, that then it gets even better. It's like, oof, like who knows what's going to happen today? And then you really become in the moment. You're not constantly thinking about what's going to happen and what's going to happen and what's going to happen. Like I used to go to those, how you said you go to a meeting or a conference, and if you don't make you beeline to the door. I would go and just analyze like who's there and who am I going to see and what am I going to talk about and how am I going to present myself? I mean, when I used to go to these dinner meetings, I used to wear my, I was setting an expectation or fulfilling an expectation for those individuals that looked at me as a really sharp HR guy. And now I get to go to the same
Yeah,
dinner
senior.
meeting
So,
and just be like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I paint houses, and I'm a coach on Change. What's
so
up?
you're,
You know,
sounds like you're kind of recycling, eh? Life.
yeah. But
Yeah.
go back to answer your question.
Yeah.
I I do see. I don't really like. I wouldn't really, if I'm hearing your question correctly, I don't really spend a lot of time with people that hate what they do. Like my clients may say that they want something more, but if someone just comes to me and says they hate what they do,
Yeah.
and that's all they want to tell me, I'm no good to them. I can't
Yeah.
help them.
Well, yeah, they get a mindset, right?
Yeah, it's great. There are people out
Yeah.
there that love bitching and moaning about their
Oh yeah, yeah.
situation,
Like
and
I
they'll
train guys, I train guys at the gym. Like I train a few. They have a mindset. No, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna. Well, like, no use training you if you got a mindset.
yeah, it's fine. I mean, and I'm honest with them too. I mean, someone actually reached out to me today on LinkedIn. Someone who she and I were almost when I say peers, I mean we every time we were looking for we actually interviewed for the same jobs at some places. Like she was this person who was always like next to me.
Oh, okay.
But she said in her message, I had no idea. I didn't know that she left the career to raise a family, and now she's unsure if she wants to get back in HR or do whatever. And sometimes if people want to get into careers, I have all this experience in HR. I could, if you, for instance, if you said, Nick, I really want to get into marketing. You and I could probably sit down for like 6 months and put together like a really cool plan and execute it. And you can find a marketing job. But that's all just tapping on my HR skill set. It's nothing to do with my coaching skills and helping people kind of grow and blossom and become better, in that marketing job, let's say. And I saw her message. This peer of mine sent it on LinkedIn, and I was going to respond, but I wanted to wait till tonight. And the questions I just want to ask her is like, what are you afraid of? Like, that's all I want to say is, what are you afraid of? Because I want to make sure if she's afraid of something, I can help her. If she just looks, she's looking for something else, I'm not the right person for her. I could turn her over to 6 recruiters that can help her out.
Yeah.
But I think it's fun. It's fun. I learned that in painting, and I learned that in coaching, that you can't be all things to all people. You have to be really clear on what you offer and how you serve others, and stick to it, versus trying to, you and I might be, I don't know if you're a people pleaser, but deep down I am. So you want to help as many people as you can, but you can't.
Yeah.
You have to be
No, you
honest and say,
can't. No. And you got to
yeah.
really. That's a good subject in the next segment. But which is about help people. I'm for myself personally met through a lot of people myself, and now people I know they go through the process. Like they would help somebody, say a certain person. They might be a narcissist or a certain
Mhm.
type, but no matter what they do, and then they come back to me and
Yeah.
I feel bad. I said, you know what, you got to realize you've done a little bit you can, whatever you believe in or whatever you don't believe in. You got to say to yourself, I've done what I can as you and peace. That's because that person appealed to you because of your personality, and because it doesn't appeal to
Yeah.
them and they don't like that. It's like a case of jealousy or narcissism. It's just a case of you can only do so much, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, if you got a
Mhm.
mindset, no matter how much you do, and you'll say, and I
Can't
guess all
deny.
the time people always tell me, oh, I did this for this person, I helped this, and they burned me in the end. And I go, well, that's part of life. But you know what? Don't feel bad about yourself. Because do you feel good doing what you did to the person helping you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just leave it at that. Just
Yeah.
leave
You
it at
did,
that.
you did
Don't
something good.
analyze
No
it.
one,
Don't analyze because you gotta these I always say for every one person they're gonna burn you, there's 10 other people out there they're gonna burn.
yeah, that's
Right?
fine. I mean, you have to,
But
again,
you gotta realize you can't always feel guilty for everything, right? You
yeah, or
just
also,
yeah,
yeah, I've had some bad experiences with customers where you figure you did everything you could and you can't
yeah.
make them happy. It's not your problem. It's their problem.
Yeah, you just
And
gotta like realize you've done what the best you can as a person inside. That's why they're attracted to your personality and your persona because that's who you are, right? They can see that. Like they rate around, kind of like they rate around the good people. Like not saying they're all bad, but they're good energy. I love that energy. I want to take with that energy. I'm gonna learn from that energy. But you know what? I still got a mindset.
and I work a lot, and you've seen
Yeah,
my content. I work a lot with how powerful the mind is, and
yeah,
how if you don't, I mean, we're not separate from our minds, but our minds are biologically made to do certain things that we don't know it's doing, to protect us, to keep us safe, to avoid harmful things. It's our mind is, our
well,
brains have
it's like
evolved to keep us alive.
I know people like that. Their routine. They like being comfortable. Not away in their loners, but they just like they don't want to be burned
And that's
anymore.
fine. That's
Yeah,
great. That's awesome. Like I would never, I used to think like, even when I think I was alluding to a little bit of this before, is when I was in, I left this corporate job, and I was angry. I had to get, so I didn't grieve my career. I had to get pissed at it, kind of like a girlfriend that cheated on you. It's easier to get mad at her than it is to just dump somebody who's been nice to you. And I found, like, when I would talk about it, that I would, and my friend being another friend of mine, we would talk about being entrepreneurs, and that we left corporate, like corporate was the enemy, like it's being an entrepreneur is the only way to do it. And then a short time went by and started realizing that that's stupid. That's why, like, that's just, then we just talk about paths. It doesn't matter what it is. I would never tell anyone if, like, there was a time where I really enjoyed being in corporate America. And there are other people in there that, executives, men or women who have like a beach
Hey, Nick,
house. And yes.
we're gonna go to the next segment. I got a question to ask you next one.
Oh, you want me to stop?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the next segment. I'm gonna ask you a
Oh,
question.
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Let me
So,
know
so
what do we.
I'll end this one. I'll do the next
Oh,
one.
I got you because you
Yeah,
run
yeah,
out
yeah.
of time.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah. I'm looking at your. I'm trying to look on your check.
You're so funny, dude. All right. All right. Let me get out of this
I'll
one. I'll
end
go
this
on the
here.
next one.
I'll go about
All
5 minutes.
right.
And